Welcome to the Plan 6 part video. Welcome to the next part of tr6 dash installation. Okay, so this video is actually going to be sort of two videos in one. On the last video, I had gotten to the relay at the front and I was doing the ignition. I thought I'd start with the horn and I was doing the ignition. And then what happened after that is I looked for all the wires for the horn and there was none there. So I started scratching my head, baffling, like, where's all the wires? Because it's supposed to be right beside it. And I thought I'd ordered the wrong harness, to be honest. Maybe I still did, I don't know. But what I didn't notice, and if you look back actually on part 1, part 2 at the beginning when I started to put things together, you realise on the horns I put a purple with a black tracer. Now, according to the schematics and the wiring diagram, it's meant to be actually a black wire and a purple with a yellow tracer. So I didn't realise that when I was putting it on, I was actually putting the wrong colour codes on. I knew it was purple, but I was oblivious to the shades of purple I was putting on. Anyway, long story short, it seems that according to this wiring harness, it completely bypasses the relay. Because you have your purple, which is your main feed, and you have your purple black, which is your ground, because that's the wire that comes from your horn. So according to this, it looks like it's straight to the horn, bypasses the relay completely, which I don't know if I'm. You know what, I kind of like it actually, because one less relay, one less thing to go wrong. You have less wiring and fuses, obviously it's going to save you because it's one less relay you have to buy. There's less wiring mess over there in the corner under the hood or the dash or the bonnet. And yeah, and people may say, hey, what if you get a power surge and the relay goes out? Well, all the purples are together, so if you get a power surge in one, you're going to get a power surge in them all. And I've yet to have that happen, so I don't know, I think it's a little tidier. Now, I get mine from the UK, so I don't know if this is just a new way they're doing it. Oh, somebody's in a hurry this morning. I don't know if it's a new way they're doing it, or just like I said, it's the style of wiring harness. I ordered the wrong one. Either way, everything's going to work out fine. It's actually a bit cleaner, and I actually like it. Now, as you see, it's a nice sunny morning now. It's starting to get cold, so like I'm here with my nice cup of tea. Actually, I'm on cinnamon tea actually, so give this a try. So what I'm also going to do is, I've done another video where I've done the dash installation. I've done part 1, part 2, and I got to part 3. The dashboard wasn't where I got it from, because it was a different vendor I tried this time for the dashboards to see, and it wasn't bored correctly. So I found out afterwards that after I started making the video, I had to take it off and actually drill the holes myself to make it fit. And there was other further complications, so I was learning that part of it from that supplier, how the dashboards go. So I end up not making the third part of that video. So I'm going to use this opportunity to do this as well. So this is now the next part, the third part, I think, in the wiring. So it's going to be part 3 in the dash installation. Now, what else have I done since that? Obviously, since that, I've put the heater blower back in. Last night I spent the time and I put the glove box back in. I put new vent hose under here, because to be honest, a lot of the vent hose you get now, and I don't know who supplies, and I'm not trying to dish anybody, any supplier, but a lot of the vent hose you get now is you might as well take it off a vacuum cleaner. It's terrible, it's disgraceful. The stuff I get is pretty much like original, rigid. It's great, absolutely great stuff. It's pretty much just about as rigid as you can get, I think. Minus all the mice and the dust and cobwebs, everything else that has been there. So yeah, so that's where I am now. So now I'm going to continue on, and what we're going to do is we're going to chew all the wiring. I stuck some. I wanted to start this video and I realized I haven't put the lights in because I need it in the middle. The rest I don't have to necessarily just yet, but I'll do as I go along. So I'll leave my tea down and let's get cracking. So what will we need on this? Obviously we will need a wiring diagram if you haven't got one. Again, these are available here at Planet 6 Parts. You can get them this big, blown up, or we do the work here as well if you're interested. If you can't, if you want to tackle this, don't want to tackle it yourself. Right, I'm going to zoom in because I need to sort of get as close as I can to the dash so you can see what I'm doing. I'll move the camera down. But for now, let's start with this. Alright. I know I'm going to get in and I know I'm going to forget something. Bulbs. Yeah, bulbs be handy. All right. Put the bolts over here. All right. So usually there's a seat here, but because I was putting the rear harness in, I pulled the rear seat out, the seat out. So we've gotten to this stage. Let's say you hadn't taken your matrix out and you just have all the wires unplugged and you basically have just wires everywhere and you're like, right, what's what? The harness itself as it goes along actually splits out, and I have another diagram to show you, and I don't have it here with me in here. But I have a diagram and it's a layout of the dash. Now it's the early dash for both, the one with the ignition down here as well. And it basically shows you the wiring diagram as it comes along, and it shows you which wires come out and what they are and where they go. So it actually branches all the way across and shows you what's meant to go where, which is pretty good. It's only for the early one. The late one it doesn't, so there's a few changes, but it's pretty helpful. So first what we're going to do is we're going to start with the middle. Now these, this one here is getting LEDs. So first of all, what I'm going to do is I'm going to disconnect this. I'll show you a bit. Right. Here's the main cluster of wires that's going to go here. Now remember, this is an early car, not a late. A late you'll have a few more. And then out of that cluster you have a second cluster, which is this here. So you have all these together. Now looking at the way this new harness is, and again, granted it is new, is that they sort of split it a bit. So these are going to be your ignition, because you're looking at the whites and browns, so that's going to be ignition. In here is a solid green. Now this solid green is a solid power, and this is going to be what's running your actual heater blower. So this one's going to go to that switch. But for now I'm going to leave it to the side. We're going to look at the rest of the ones, which is we're going to work on this gauge here now, these ones. So we have these all bunch of wires and what goes where. Well, if you actually break it down, it's actually very simple. So if you look at it, out of all these, we know we have 4 lamps or 4 lights. So obviously the new wiring harness come with a push fit instead of a screw. However, we can separate these 4 and actually push them to the side. Alright, that's 4 out of the way. Now I'm left with all these. What do these do? With the early model, we're looking at the browns. All the brown wires go to the amp gauge. So these are the amp. There's 1 gauge out of the way. Now I'm left with just these little few wires. Now again, the reds are always the lights. So 1 solid red and 1 red with a white tracer. The new ones have the white tracer to show which is the input and which is the output. So this is obviously your power into your dimmer, and this is out and runs everywhere else. Because this is getting LED, I'm not using the dimmer because it doesn't work with LED lights. If you want a dimmer for your LEDs, you're going to have to go buy an LED dimmer and either replace that one there or put it somewhere else. So what we're doing with this one is we're bridging. So we're completely bypassing. So of course I just made a little strap with 2 spade connectors. Bypass the dimmer. Now they go to the side. So now I'm left with just these wires. And I have 4 wires left. So I was moving there, the doggy's in here. Walking around. So I have 4 wires left. Out of these 4, we've only 2 gauges left really. Because the oil pressure has an oil line and a light. So we're left with just the fuel and the temperature. That's it. And that's the easiest way to break it up. What would you like? As you can see, we have a visitor here. The head trying to get in. Doesn't like being left alone. This is Susie, by the way. If anybody, I don't know if you can see her, but she's oh no, apparently Susie wants it. No, it's okay. Can I make this? We'll play ball later. No, wobble off somewhere. Okay. So if we look at follow the diagram, we have our temperature gauge and we have a fuel gauge. They're the same on whether it's an early or late. So hopefully you can see it. I know there's enough sunlight. So it goes one to the other. So it goes through the temperature gauge onto the fuel gauge, because the temperature gauge should be the first gauge, and that's the light green, and then the green U, which U is blue. So that's our green with blue, and it's the double light green, the green. So these 2 here. So once I do that, automatically I know that these should be the fuel sender, because we have a light green and then we have a green with a black tracer, and if you follow the fuel line at the back or to the fuel sender, it's a green with a black tracer. Now, little bit of information. If you're doing your own car, and you're changing the wiring harness because there's a lot of faults, you may want to test everything first. So before you put the gauges in, bench test the gauges, make sure your temperature and your fuel is working. You can bench test the amp gauge as well if you really want to, or the volts gauge or the later one, you can do them as well, just to make sure they're actually working before you install them. Because if they're not working, you're going to spend a lot of time chasing wires and connections for no reason. Same as when you have these connected, you know, the gauge works, you can then, when you get power, you can actually ground out the sender unit back there, and then you can test to make sure that the unit itself is actually working. So there's just a few things to do before you get too deep or button everything up. So even though this is a new harness, I haven't put the rear panel kit on because everything's connected, but just in case I need to actually find a fault or something's not getting power, then I have to find out why. Alright, so the rest of the wires I'm going to leave loose there for now, because I'll do that once I get the dash in. So, there's the dash behind me. Alright. So we have a dashboard. Whoops. In this, you can see the 4 gauges are in it. This one should be crooked. Good time to fix it. And again, it's a good time you're doing it to make sure that all the spade connectors are clean. Alright, so while you have it off, give all the spade connectors a clean. And just make sure you have a good connection. Alright, so the only last thing to get is the oil line. So hang on, a little deep for that. In here somewhere. One of the most frustrating parts of doing the oil line is the nut falling all the way back down the line. All the way back down. So there is a little trick to that you can do. I haven't done it myself here, you know. Yeah. Which is put a bit of masking tape around it. Put a bit of masking tape around here, and it'll only go back so far. So to save you losing the nut, just put a bit of tape in. So simple things, but yeah, I've learned the hard way by putting it on, then look for the nut. It's all the way on the back. Same as when you put the tack and the speedo cable on again, it always falls down. Alright, so what we're going to do is start connecting this. Now granted, there's a bit more space here because the way I've moved it, and it is a new harness, so I have a little bit more room. Sometimes you're not as lucky with them. I'm not going to lie, it's not as easy sometimes, especially harnesses that have already been in there and they're stretched. The only real way around that is to take it off the firewall, the little tabs that hold it to the wall, and let the harness sit a little looser, and that'll give you a bit more room to pull out, or move it. Just move it till you get more room. Now, lucky enough I remember this. So, the only little thing here is to find where the wires come from, to find the best wire that stretches, especially the lights, to make sure that you get all the way in. I don't need that, so I can push this away. That's one less wire in the way. Alright, we want to get stuck in there. Alright, so the first one up is a temperature gauge, and it's a double green. I always go from the driver's side across. I'm not sure if it makes a difference, but that's the way I do it. And then our fuel gauge is here. If you really had the room, you could move the gauges around. I know it shows them in a position, but to be honest, I'd move them to what best suits the wiring, so you're not pulling or stretching. I'm pulling the life out of it. It's a little game of feed the wires until we get to it. Now the amp gauge, sorry, I didn't say what goes where the amp. So the amp basically has 2 large spades and you have 1 small one. So it's almost self-explanatory that the 2 large at the top and you've only 1 bottom and 1 small at the bottom. There's no set order as long as the 2 brown at the top. The brown with the white is on the bottom. Now I have to get the lights in. Again, look for which one's stretched. I'm always looking to see which one's going to reach here easiest. Not sure they're different lengths, but alright, we're all connected there, all good. So now once it's all done, I can slip it back in. I'll slip the dash in. I'm just looking to make sure nothing's going to get pinched or fall out. Sorry, I want to make sure nothing gets pinched or fall out. Here, what I said there. Yes, I know you're there. Oh, and yeah, make sure all these wires are in here, especially with the push in. Alright. So now, we're going to screw the dash on, at least get it held on. Now, for the later models, if you're doing this, the only difference you'll have in the middle is that you'll have an extra, you'll have the white with the red tracer, which is your radio wire. That will be in there. You will also have some more purple tracer, I believe. And that one will run down to your switch, which is the ground, to trigger the courtesy lamps. So that will be in there. And is there any more other ones? Just different coloured, just slightly different coloured wires. Obviously the volts gauge runs, I think, a double white and I forgot what the colour runs. Double white and maybe a brown. I'm not sure. Oh, I think it's a black. I think it's a double white and a black. I'm just trying to remember offhand. So the colours are different, but again, you'll do the same thing. Just separate them. Some people like to tape them together when you come out to remember where you go, which is fine. But you won't be able to put them back on and leave them taped. Yeah. Unfortunately, it doesn't work that way because they just take in, it's giving yourself left room. The problem it has the other issue is that if they give you longer wire to pull it out further, the problem is they're trying to jam it all back in again. So win one way and lose another. So that's that done. So now we have these done. So now with that done, what we're going to do is we'll move on to the next stage, which is the ignition and all these. But what I'm going to do is, just before I get to there, because I don't want to go too far ahead of myself, is because I have to go get other stuff as well, is I'm going to go, because I have to go get all the switches and everything on the dials and actually bring them in. So that'll be it for this part. We'll do another part. Obviously installing the dash, like that's pretty much where we are here, and then we're going to start going into all the rest of the wiring, like where it goes, because yeah, it's now it starts getting terrible because now you just have a pile of wiring everywhere. Now is the point to start. Maybe we'll take it out, we'll leave it hanging out here, and we'll distinguish what goes where. So obviously this ignition one is pretty short, so what I'll probably end up doing is making this one's not going to reach to the ignition itself. Obviously it's here, So I'm going to make an actual strap. I believe there is one that you can actually get that goes from the back of the ignition up. I know the later models have the block connector, but obviously these are not going to reach, and there's no point in forcing or trying to make it reach. So the ignition wires I'm going to bridge, and I'll use the same color code wires. I'm just going to extend them so that it's nice and easy, and I can tuck it in it and get it all done nice and neat. So, alright, that's it for this part, and on the next part we'll get in and we'll start tackling, and I'll reset the camera up underneath and we'll start joining some more wires together. Obviously if you're just doing the dash, you wouldn't have a lot of the wires disconnected under here, you'd have them already, but we're going to cover them all, and we'll cover all the lights. Most of them are pretty much the same. So yeah, and I'm going to put some bulbs in the bulb holder so I don't waste any more time. So that's it. So see you in the next part.